Will and I met actually about 11 years ago in the Philippines at an internet marketing conference. It was freaking amazing. It was 2 weeks long. We all brought our own businesses to this thing and we all worked on them together for 2 weeks straight. We have kept in touch ever since then. We've collaborated on a few different projects. Probably about 6 years ago, he and I started a digital marketing or the beginning of a digital marketing agency, and our focus was the back end, meaning like emails, upselling clients, card optimization. And at first, I helped with some of the lead generation, trying to bring on new clients. And it has evolved probably 30 times since then. Since then, we did go our separate ways amicably, in touch every single week. And Will has some of the most well thought out and concise ways of running a maybe like a medium-sized business, I would say, right? 10 plus employees, how to make sure everybody's getting what they need to get done, how to prove that um with the numbers and how to move forward with the numbers, how to know like who's getting their job done, who isn't, what's working, what's not working. Guys, it is fascinating. It is fascinating stuff, and it's stuff that like um I've always wished that I did better. And so, welcome to the call, Will.
What's up? Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So since we stopped working together directly in around 2018, 2019, um, what has transpired since then in like a medium zoomed out level? Like take me through what has gone on since then.
Yeah, so initially, I guess when we first started working together, it was really when Instagram started taking off, or Facebook acquired Instagram. And so I noticed a lot of stores, a lot of online stores were going from like, I do $50,000 a month to I do $50,000 a day. So that trend, I got a lot of that trend happened right there. And then um, since then, I guess I moved on to doing more like cart optimization stuff, checkout optimization stuff. And then a couple years ago, Shopify sort of cracked down on all of that. Um, it's a long story, but basically, we weren't able to do a lot of the same things that we were able to do there. And so since then, I've been entirely focused on being a service provider in the Klaviyo market, which is like Klaviyo is like a MailChimp
Yeah.
or a HubSpot or Salesforce for e-commerce stores.
Right. So back in the day, there
Mhm.
Shopify used to have like third-party checkout plugins, right?
Yeah,
They had
yeah,
that main company that was charging like 300 a month, but it was like so bang on. And you had the upsell and the downsell funnel. Is that right? So
yeah, yeah. It's
after
like
they already
ClickFunnels.
bought, they had already spent the money they were already going to spend, and you're like, hold on, wait, do you want to buy an extra one for half off or whatever? And they're like, if they say
Yeah,
no, then it goes to, okay, what about 60% off? And they say no to that, and then maybe they get like a third, fourth, and fifth option, and that was super cool. And so you had to completely drop that side of the business once they got rid of that, right?
yeah. I mean, you can still do that, but the apps sort of changed in the convert. It's crazy, but yeah, that business basically disappeared overnight. Um, and so much disappeared that the guy that started one of the apps that I was really prominently using, Cardhook, their CEO just left the company too. Like it
What?
totally changed. Yeah, he sold it to
Okay.
a coworker, and he went on and started another company called Rally. It's similar technology, but doesn't exist on the Shopify platform.
Okay.
But yeah, but yeah. I mean, it like, long story short, basically Shopify, you had to now go through Shopify checkout. And with Shopify checkout, they really limited what you could do. So it
Got
took away the ability to be a service provider.
it. Okay. Now, we used to get leads off Upwork. So we would look at other people's job postings and what they were looking for, and we would hit them up and get them on a sales call. How has your sales process evolved since then?
Yeah, so I originally um, did a lot on Upwork. That was how I originally got my start. Met some huge clients there,
Yeah.
like the biggest of the biggest Shopify stores I met on Upwork around 2017, 18, 19. Um, and I still think you can get started there today, but I'm not, we don't really use that as a channel anymore. Um, and now I'm getting most of my leads through, we've tried a lot of different things. We've done cold calling, we've done cold emailing. Cold emailing at one point was our number one channel. Now it's all LinkedIn organic.
Really? Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll get to that soon because
Yeah.
that's I really want to talk about that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so you were kind of it's like you were reverse selling them, right? They were saying, "Hey, sell me on your job," and you're saying, "Hey, I've got one better for you. Here's what we do. We can rock and roll this thing. We get, 14% additional items loaded in the cart and a 36% you know, um revenue per customer. And on top of that, we do your email marketing and we'll do the email marketing on a contingency basis."
Hmm.
And so we kind of just throw like as much as we could at them value wise and see which one stuck.
Yeah, I think back then it was really easy. The value prop was really clear, especially because being at the overlap of that tool, Cardhook, Klaviyo, Shopify, there was just I was like literally one of the only people that understood it.
Yeah.
I think there's
Yeah.
maybe a few other people that did at the time. It was just very complicated, and it was very much in my zone of genius, like trying to figure out all these apps, and then you also had to understand direct response marketing, digital marketing,
Yeah.
and I think that and then also I had an entrepreneurial background, so I could speak to these people. I was dealing a lot back then. I was mostly selling to other founders, co-founders, and stuff like that, and so I was
Yes.
able
Yeah.
to sort of resonate with them a lot clearer than I
Sure.
think some other service providers.
Now, what is the biggest hurdle that you ran into with Upwork eventually that led you to stop getting clients there? Was it the revenue that you could actually charge these people? Like it just there's no way to spin it into a 4 or 5 figure a month project.
Yeah, I think that eventually it just became very. First off, it was like really hard to delegate. Like I was really the only one on my team that I was like sort of the Upwork whisperer in a way. You know, no one could really. For some reason, I just had this knack for like figuring out who was a whale client,
Yeah.
um, and and yeah. So I mean, I think that we would also have to, in order to get those whale, what I would call like a whale client, like someone who's, you know, making over $1 million, sometimes over $100 million a year
Right.
in revenue.
Yeah, they had big
Um,
problems that were costly to their business.
yeah. And no matter what, even if I could find those, I would often have to sort through like 10 to 20, just like not whale clients,
Mm.
people who are like, I want to pay you, $500 one time to fix this problem. And so, that you should totally do that if you're just getting started you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
but it got to a point I was doing 10K MRR, monthly recurring revenue, then I was doing 20K, then we were doing 50K monthly recurring and then it's like it was hard to like justify doing that anymore.
Right.
And then about that time too, we started to find other channels. Like we really started to figure out cold email and really getting some whale clients in via cold email. um, that's now changed. That market's now changed, but I think that's why we originally just stopped using Upwork. Also, technically, how we were acquiring these clients was against the terms of service too. We were totally working with them not on the platform. You're supposed to,
Yeah.
when you get hired on Upwork, you're supposed to do everything through their
Right.
platform, but their platform's terrible. They take a 20% cut, and then
Yeah.
they don't pay
Much.
you for 14 days. It's like they're almost like, why would you work on their platform with terms like that?
Yeah.
So uh,
Well, not
so
to
that's
mention the
why.
customer wanted
Yeah,
a $4 an hour person. And you're like, hey, how about a 5 grand a month type, or a
yeah,
thousand or whatever you were going to pitch them was going to be 10 times higher
yeah.
than this. when we had
You're
an office.
also competing with a lot of people who are like, I can do this in the or someone in the Philippines or India or Bangladesh
Yep.
who might not. They're probably not as some. The capabilities have definitely increased with people in those countries, but at that time, you know, it wasn't the case, I would say.
Yeah.
But there still would be some people that are just like, well, I can go do this for XYZ in the Philippines. Most of the big whale clients know, the ones that were doing millions though would they would pay for expertise though.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
What was your biggest client without doxing them unless you don't care? What was your biggest client that you got off of Upwork?
Um Probably my biggest client was True Classic Teas. Um
Okay.
that's a very well-known company now.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
we worked with Colgate off of Upwork.
Wow, you got
Not
that one.
directly, but the relationship that led to that came from there.
Okay.
Um, I've worked with another very, very large, a few very, very large supplement brands um, that are very well known. Some like that are
Mhm.
distributed. They're either they rank number one on Amazon for different keywords, or they're in Target. We've worked with a lot of companies now that are in Target and Whole Foods and stuff like that, and some of them did come from Upwork.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Mhm.
And then you switched to email marketing. Now, I remember you had was it called Rocket Reach? Is that what it was
Yeah,
called?
like cold email marketing was a big channel for us for a while.
That sounds scary. Like, how did you navigate that? I mean, you can get kicked off of the email platforms for spamming, right? There's some repercussions there beyond just
Yeah,
no, right?
I don't really recommend it as a channel anymore, to be honest with you, but I still see a lot of people doing it. Like I get cold email pitched like all the time. I've probably gotten five this morning already. Um, and
Jesus.
I think that how you do it at scale is you basically buy a bunch of domain names that are similar to your domain name,
Yeah.
and you sort of rotate them out via various
Um,
tools. And
okay.
because we are an email marketing agency in general, we don't do cold email marketing services, but we understand it. And so we had a deliverability person on our team already that could help us with those issues, because you're going to run into deliverability issues. Domain
Yeah.
names are going to get burned. Like if you're sending out hundreds of cold emails a day, um, people are going to mark that as spam,
Right.
and so you
Right.
have to be able to switch domain names to a new domain name that isn't been burned. And yeah, it's not like I said, you will get clients, or you have in times past. From my experience, we did get clients from it. We got some whale clients from it, but it seems like everyone's doing it now, and it's just. And then there's a huge Yahoo Google update in February this year, and it's just made it really, really much harder to really rely on that as a channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
one thing I would add too is like the sales process with that channel is really sucks as well, because once you get, let's say, okay, they do open the email, click book a meeting with you, um, the prospect tends to show up on the call very hostile. you know
Ooh, okay.
they don't
Okay.
really know, like, and trust you. They're kind of, if anything, they're skeptical of you. So it requires like kind of a savvy salesperson to deal with that, which
Yeah.
is not very fun, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, they might be getting on that call just to tell you their peace of mind or something. I mean, has that ever happened? Like they're like,
For
yeah, I'm gonna
sure.
get a call.
Yeah. How did
I
you
have
get my
your
email
info, you
address?
mother.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
That's a
for
trip,
sure.
man. Yeah, that would be the part that would probably scare a lot of people away, including myself. I'd be like, I kind of don't want that heat, you know? I want the clients, but I don't necessarily want to get cussed out on a phone call or like maybe I would because I'm the owner, but to pay someone to then get on hostile calls, I think that would be, I'm assuming you had trouble with that too as well. Like they're not
Yeah, I
exactly
don't.
they're not exactly
Yeah.
all fired up to like get on this call where you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. The only time it really worked is someone was already in the market for it. You
Yeah.
know, if they're like, "Oh, I'm already like looking to for us," it was like to redo our email marketing, redo our flows, and so then it was like, oh, then they had a response. They had like, "Well, I'm already looking for this, so I'll reply to this," and it wasn't so hostile. Um,
Okay.
but like anybody who wasn't like had that direct pain point, was pretty skeptical of it
Yeah. Yeah.
because you have to come in with a big hook, like, "Hey, I'm going to increase your revenue by A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z," and it just
Yeah.
for it's that hook is certainly true for some prospects, but some prospects it's not true.
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, it was part of our experience, it's part of my journey.
Yeah. So now your main move, I remember when you started doing this, I was in Las Vegas last year and we were on a call and you started walking through, it's unrelated to this topic, but it was like a step 4 process for something. And it just had to do the main overview I remember is like you're like, I'm gonna add value and I'm gonna let the value lead the way. And then you started making LinkedIn posts, which blew my mind. And you were evaluating businesses, right? And how their brand worked and why it worked and what was their, I'm assuming it was their hero's journey sort of thing. And you were getting subscribers that were like Fortune 500 companies saying, dude, what's this about? Um, so walk me through that because I can never hear this enough.
Yeah, I mean, now our number one channel, our only channel right now is inbound, um, which is really the best channel. It's like people are
Yeah.
coming to you, people are sort of chasing you, and we're sold out for July, um, and we have like maybe a couple spots in August where historically it tends to slow down in the summer, and we've always kind of had to like really hustle to find clients in the summer. So yeah, we really just started doing this in October, and it took us a while. We're still building systems here, but yeah, basically we follow LinkedIn is the channel that works for us because that's where our target market is. Our target market is B2B
Yeah.
professionals that work at B2B companies, but you could do the same thing on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, you know. Um, and yeah, we just give like, I think that what we're doing right now is we have a couple different types of posts, and they tend to go viral. Um, and really all we're doing is we're just breaking down other brands, businesses. Like we did, our most viral post was a breakdown of Kim Kardashian's brand Skims. Um, it got like thousands of comments and reposts, and basically we broke down the Skims entire funnel, like how they get traffic, how they land on the site, their emails and stuff like that. And we put it in like a nice little report, and we just gave it away for free
Nice.
um, on LinkedIn. And so we do like we did one on Black Rifle Coffee last week that did pretty well. I did one yesterday on Papa Tui, which is The Rock's new skincare brand or
Oh yeah.
tattoo like ink care brand. We're gonna do one on Celsius, the drink that's sort of
Drink. Yep.
yeah, that's publicly traded company now.
Okay.
So we do that, and then and if you own an agency or you're a service provider, um, you could just break down your dream clients, your dream, like that's what we did, like I don't work with Skims. I don't work with Black Rifle Coffee. I don't work with, um, uh, Celsius, any of these companies, but we're like, okay, these would be awesome clients to have one day. Um,
Right.
so we just started breaking like who are the leaders in the market. But also another way we go viral too is we just build resources. We take all of our SOPs and uh, our training sort of modules we have for our internal team, and we
Mhm.
turn that into like lead magnets as well. So
Okay. Okay.
one that's gone viral too is we have what's called so we do email marketing. It's flows in our industry, also called autoresponders in other industries. We have probably like 50 60, 70 different types of flows we can build for clients. And we over the years, we have this thing called a flow library. So I was like, why not just give this all away for free, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I took my flow library, made it a viral post, and, we get hundreds of people downloading that every month. And yeah, I mean, it's just like, again, it's adding value. It's just giving away everything, being totally transparent.
Mhm.
Um, because again, like most of the really big whale clients, which are the people that we want to work with, you know, they're so busy. They don't have time to do this. They're just going to raise their hand and be like, how can I pay you to do this for me?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like go viral through like all of the down part of the market,
Right.
because the big one, and again, we've had like all of our clients now are coming from this. We just signed a big eyewear company. I can't name them, but they're pretty name brand. We
Mhm.
just signed a name brand computer company. Like if you walk into a Best Buy or a Micro Center, you would know them. Uh,
Right.
we continue to work with name brand CPG companies, and it's all through LinkedIn right now.
CPG, what's that?
Consumer packaged goods, like
Okay.
Procter and Gamble, Unilever, like
They
all
be
the
throwing out
companies.
these acronyms like everybody's gonna
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I know. Sorry, CPG. Yeah,
Oh man, dude, I remember because for a while you were doing these posts, they were going viral, and you're like, "That's great and everything," but I hadn't figured out the next step. It's like you went
Mhm.
viral before you even knew what to freaking do with these people, right?
Yeah,
And so what that
yeah,
took what, like 6 months or so to figure out like how to even monetize that.
yeah. Because I think that you're going to get a lot of leads that are not qualified.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so and so we still are working on our process to move a lead to a qualified lead to a sales qualified lead. Um, and so we're still working on that on those systems. But what I've realized is just if you get them consuming your content, and then they read one piece of content, they read two pieces of content, they read three pieces of content, they're gonna know, like, and trust you, and they're gonna like sort of chase you to become a client, as opposed to you having to chase them, which is like cold email, cold calling,
yeah, yeah.
Upwork, stuff like that. Um, and it makes it a lot easier to control, to just close sales.
Yeah,
You don't need this closer or whatever they call it in the salesperson. A lot
totally.
of times our salesperson just gets on the call, like
Doesn't mess it up essentially.
we're basically trying to interview them to see
Yeah,
if they're a good fit to
yeah,
work with us, because we only have a few spots available now, so we're not looking to onboard any client that has negative energy, bad vibes, you
yeah.
know that's
Well, and
going.
you blew past this, but you said we're booked up for this month. So you put a cap on how many people can sign up, right?
Yeah,
And what do you cap that at what, 4 a month or something like that? Like it's very, very low. And
yeah,
let them know, like, look, we're all booked up for this month, but we are taking potential clients, at least potentially taking clients in August, right?
yeah,
That puts
yeah. So
them
I think
in different,
yeah, I
yeah.
think a lot of like freelancers or people just starting an agency, they're just so trying to get any type of client they can get, but they don't realize that they really have limited bandwidth, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And I'm not the original thinker of this. Is basic supply and demand, and
yeah.
Hormozy, for those who know him, he talks about this, like actually capping your supply.
Mhm.
So we looked at our supply and it's like, well, we really only have like 15 to 20 spots available at any given time to work with us. Like, we're a smaller team. We're not trying to be mass market. We're more
Right.
premium. So yeah, like right now we literally only have one or two spots available. So we look at it, we track it. It's sort of a KPI in our business, like how we call it utilization, how well utilized is our team.
Hmm.
And and yeah, we can't go over that because it'll burn the team out, and then it'll cause a drop in quality.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think, and then you can use that in your sales process. I think that's what you're trying to come back to is you can say like, hey, we only have one, and we do that too, and it's like real actual scarcity. If you're
Yeah, it's
familiar,
genuine. It's genuine based on your
yeah,
experience. Because if you took
yeah,
in, let's say you hit the lottery of leads and you all of a sudden had, 20 people that are like, take my money,
yeah,
you wouldn't be able to deliver that, at least not overnight. It would take a while to get ramped up and get qualified people trained and ready to go. And the
yeah,
truth is, you're not, the other cool part about what you're doing now is you're not necessarily trying to get way bigger. You'll get a little bit bigger if you can figure out the fundamentals at the size you're at. But you're not like, dude, we got to triple, quadruple this thing, which is kind of what you were doing for a while, right? And
yeah,
you sort of burnt yourself out on going for everybody that you possibly could. Not to mention the level, like the leads you had were all out and they were interviewing you, and now you're interviewing them. So, dude, this all came about right as you were burning out, right? So this is like James Bond jumping off the cliff and getting the plane on the way down and pulling it back up.
yeah. I had a
Is it
major
not?
burnout like about
Yeah.
a little over a year ago. Um,
Yeah.
just like everything was imploding all at once. But yeah, I mean, I think that what we had invested in was a coach,
Mhm.
and there is you have like eventually you reach a level where you have to like you have to be able to trust other people to do other things in the business,
Yeah.
and I think you have to go through growing pains to find those people, to find those systems and processes, and I think that's what was going on, you know but yeah, it was like we were trying to implement all of these things and none of it was really working. Then it
Mhm.
started to kind of click, and now it's like really clicking.
Yeah, that was cool, man. I was nervous for you there for a second because you're like, man, we're just gonna take the foot off the pedal and coast here for a little bit. And you know how that goes. Like that doesn't work out. You eventually people churn and
Yeah.
um you're looking for something new to do.
Yeah, I think it's hard with the services. I think people, oh, I'm scaling. They like to use that word,
Yeah.
and like that. I think that's more of like a software term, maybe even e-commerce.
Yeah.
It's really hard to scale services. Like it's really hard to just double or triple your sales in services
Right.
because in order to do that, you have to double or triple your team,
Hmm.
and a lot of times there's just not enough time for them to really get onboarded and understand your systems.
Yeah.
Because the trade-off to that is if you do that and you just onboard them really quickly, then they're going to go out and you're probably going to onboard some B players
Hmm.
or C players, even worse.
Yeah.
And that's going to give a bad client experience.
Yeah.
Then the clients are going to churn. In worst case, they're going to go and bash you in front of other prospective clients or go on online forums or chat rooms or Facebook groups. And that's the worst thing that can happen.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like if you get a bad reputation, it's just really hard to recover from that.
Hmm. Yeah, one of my main things I focus on when doing my coaching in my business is if I think someone's unhappy or if they tell me they're unhappy, even if I completely disagree with them, I make that right either financially or refunds or whatever it takes to make sure that, best case scenario, they'll just won't talk about me.
Yeah.
But if they disagree with me and I disagree and I try to like butt heads with them and I come out on top for that battle, uh, they're gonna go out into the world and talk shit to every person that they ever meet. And I'm gonna miss out on some deals that I'm never even gonna know about. I'm gonna miss out
Yeah.
on lots of opportunities. And it's the world's not big enough to be having a bad reputation, like you said. It's very hard to come back
Yeah.
from.
Your goal in business should be to create raving fans.
Yes.
Um, where it's like they're going out there and it's like, you know, if they're at a cocktail party, for example, they just naturally bring up your business. That is the best case for any business, to be honest with you. Like if you, that's like natural virality. It's like, think about it. Like it's the best, like if a friend or a family member has, hey, you need to read this book, you need to go see this movie, you need to try this restaurant, you're like 10 times more likely to do that. On the flip
Absolutely.
side, there's raving enemies, and
Yeah,
that's
and they're more
between,
likely. They're more.
yeah,
It's a lot easier to get people that hate you,
yeah,
and in just generally not a good way.
yeah,
But to get someone that's happy to then rave about you, you got to go like really, really far above and beyond.
yeah. One thing I tell my team is like a lot of times when they're really frustrated and angry with you because you provided a poor service or there's a miscommunication, a lot of times that's an opportunity, um, to like again wow them with service.
Yeah,
um, and a lot of times you can resolve that by again just being like, hey, yeah, that's not cool, refund, or just like giving them what they, maybe not necessarily what they want, but like really giving them a good experience.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
really the key.
yeah,
It's like the quality of service is really important, especially as you move higher up ticket or higher price services and
yeah.
products. um, yeah, and like not falling into these like common pitfalls, doing what, like trying to fight with them, or like, that's just, again, like you said, that you may win the day, but you're not going to win the war if they go out there and start
Yeah.
bashing your company.
Right. It's a long life. It's a long life,
Yeah.
man. You just don't need people that are dedicated to trashing you every moment that they get. And they will absolutely do that. They will absolutely do
Yes.
that. I call it, I put a post up yesterday saying I'm basically extortable. Like if you're mad at me and you want to tell me about that, chances are you will be able to extort me out of some money to make you shut up because I don't need that in my life. It's hard enough to try to do all the right things at all times and still have, still have someone that's out there dedicated to trashing you for no reason, much less they got an actual reason. Um, I got one question before we change topics, but one of the biggest things that I watched you go through was the fact that you needed like this much income, but you were only able to charge and get people to say yes at this income. And every step of the way, let's say then your prices, the prices you could get doubled, right? So it doubled up to here, but then like then you had 20, then you had five more people on your team. So then the amount you need to charge each customer was now like it was just kind of rising together. Um, have you been able to overcome that? And if so, how?
Like, sorry, like, I'm not sure I
So like
understood the
the
question.
net amount or the gross amount
Yeah.
that you need to charge each client every
Yeah.
step of your growth because your team grew needed to be higher.
Yeah.
Well, you can't just say, cool, well, I'll just double my prices. Well, then everyone in your current, first of all, every customer you currently have is gonna churn, but all the people and the mindset of everybody that you've been selling and the feedback you've been getting, you're like, they're not gonna go from 3 to 6K or 5 to 10K. I know the level of value, the level of value you're
Yeah.
providing, and XYZ is a good price for that. However, you need to be charging more in order to grow at the pace you need to grow. So to sum it up, every step of the way, you knew you needed to charge a little bit more, but you also knew that you couldn't get people to say yes, at least at that time, at that current higher price. Like how did you I saw you overcome it, but how do you explain that to someone?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we we're still kind of going through a little bit of that, but I think that really what really fixes that problem is making sure you have a lot of demand,
Okay.
for your higher price points. If you can have a lot of demand for that, then you can oftentimes, I don't want to say weed out, but you can have tougher conversations with people that are hey, like we only have 20 spots again, like,
Right.
so it's like spots are limited. Also, another thing too that we do is we track everything in our company. We track a couple key KPIs here. One is the I mentioned the utilization, like the team utilization, like how much
Yeah.
bandwidth does the team have? Or
Yep.
every client, we track the profitability every week. So it's like, are we overbilling under, or like, are we like compared to their invoice that they're
Okay.
paying us each month? And
Right.
so we're able to flag the ones that are like literally for
Mhm.
us, if they're like kind of below a 25% profit, we'd obviously like it to be higher, but if it's
Yeah.
below a 25% profit margin, that tends to be a red flag. So we're able to identify those clients early on. So that's key too. Um, and I think the last one too is another KPI is this LER, labor efficiency ratio.
Right.
That's really our main KPI for how efficient our labor is. And we're really trying to track like how much are we getting, like revenue wise, are we getting out of our team?
Okay.
Um, and I mean, it's not like that's just one metric. I mean, we also track team happiness. So I mean, we're not just like full gung-ho get LER as high as possible, but
Sure.
if we can
Sure.
get a good LER, if we can keep in each project somewhat profitable and the team is happy doing it, then like we can typically overcome the price discrepancies, and it allows us to be a little bit more um, custom with our pricing, I would say.
Got
Especially
it.
if we get to know clients really well.
Yeah.
We can be a little bit more like we have our entry level packages, but some of our clients have been with us for 3-4 years now. We know their businesses really well. We're able to calibrate our pricing to sort of their needs,
Yeah.
and it can be a little bit more custom.
So, like, let's say you had a customer that you're charging 5,000 a month, and you found out that it's only taking you 1,000 to deliver that. Do you lower that price, or are you willing to lower that price if they say like, I don't know if this is working out for us, and okay, cool, this project's actually only taking us 1,000 a month, or do you just
Yeah.
kind of say, well, best of luck, right? I mean, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, we will look at that, like how profitable their project is. Okay. If they come to us and they're like, hey, we're having cash flow issues, our business is struggling, which has happened in the past year or two, to
Yeah.
be honest with you, just with where the economy was, seems like it's trending a little bit up now, but 6 months ago, a year ago, it's tougher. E-commerce, which is our clients, they've had a rough. They killed it during COVID. COVID was amazing for them,
Yeah.
but it's been a little bit rough since COVID, for a lot of these businesses. So we have had to have conversations with them about
Okay.
lowering their bills, and we've had to do that sometimes. And I think again, we just go straight to the numbers. Okay, it's like,
Right.
what is like, are they profitable? Um, and if they're not profitable, or it's like going down to the price that they want to would cause it to be unprofitable, we'll just tell them. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and then two, like if it's like a dramatic lowering in profit margins for us, we would then go look at the team. Okay, does the team like working with? Because that's really important too.
That's very
So we
that's very important.
we have a KPI called ENPS, like Employee Net Promoter Score. Um, it's just basically scale of 1 to 10. How like would you recommend working at Flow Candy? And if we're
Right.
getting like anything below us 8 because of a certain client, like we're flagging that. We
Yeah.
call them vampire. We literally fired a client this year, well-known client, um, that is backed by a very prominent person on Twitter that's all over the podcast. I'm not going to name names, but very well known.
Yeah.
And it's funny to hear him talk about this business because the people behind the scenes are anything but. And we fired them because our team was basically, they were sucking the energy out of our team,
Right.
and it was gonna cause some people on our team to quit. And
Yeah.
it's like when it comes to that, it's like, especially because we track all these people if they're A players or not. A players, if they're gonna quit, like it's a no brainer. Like the client's
Yeah.
got to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I have a rule in my company that I don't force my employees to work with anyone that they don't like. and they'll do
Yeah.
it to a certain degree. But if it goes too far, then yeah, you got to let the client go because the likelihood of your people being there with you long after the client is, is a lot more likely. And it can be so hard to hire the right person, just the right fit, if not like necessarily even a good person, but just the right fit, the right attitude, the right cohesion with the rest of the team. That all matters big time. And,
Yeah.
that's something you got to suffer through every single day if it's bad. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll fire almost anybody if
It
that's
can
what it
get,
is.
yeah, it can get toxic quick, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um,
Because you're more or
yeah.
less, you're kind of forcing them to deal with other toxic people and it's rubbing off. And yeah, that's a big deal. Okay. So so the original question was how do you overcome the fact that you constantly needed to make more per client, but you can't just up that overnight, right? So you're
Yeah.
having to like edge that up slowly. You're having to have product offerings that make sense.
Mhm.
Um, okay. My next question is, um, you grew from one man show, or
Mhm.
me and you at one point, and we went our separate ways, and it got big, dude. It got to what, 40 people?
At one point, we were over 30. Yeah.
Over 30. Okay. And so, like, I know you had these pain points at certain levels. Like, did it got real painful around like 10 employees, let's say. And then what did you do there? Like what were some of the really big roadblocks along that journey to 30 plus people? And how did you overcome those?
Yeah. I think the first big, well, the first one that I didn't do a good job was transitioning from freelancer to agency. I did a terrible job at that. I was just sort of like, again, because when you're a freelancer, you're having to do everything
Yeah.
and you don't have a lot of time to slow down and think. I was really good at solving clients' problems, but I wasn't really didn't know how to make that transition from freelancer to agency. So I kind of screwed that up initially, and nothing really bad happened, but I could have been more um, like transparent with my clients about, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm thinking about starting an agency, and I'm thinking about
Yeah.
doing X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z. And it's just like I was
Right.
just so like my clients don't need to know about my story, my problems, my life. I'm just here to solve their problems. And in
Yeah.
retrospect, I wish I would have just like, you know, told them that hey, I'm hiring people. Some people are helping me because I didn't do the best job of that. And yeah, I lost a couple clients because of that. So I
Okay.
think first off, just being very totally radically transparent, um, over communicating I mean, I was good at over communicating to clients about their business, but I wasn't really good about over communicating
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
clients about like my own where I'm going. So I think I would start there. So that was my first rough patch. I eventually got through that, and I hired
So basically going from like one to any more people, that became tough.
yeah. Yeah, I went from one to hiring my first like sort of team around me, which was for me was a developer, designer, and a copywriter.
Gotcha.
That's really the Go squad. So that was like the first squad, I guess. And then eventually, you need to get out of fulfillment, or what I would call fulfillment, delivering client work, and that's really hard to do. It takes time. Um, you need to be able to a lot of different things need to be happening there. You need to be able to sell. You need to
Mhm.
still be able to sell and get people onboarded
Right.
without you being the main fulfillment provider, which is really challenging to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then also you need to have the systems on the back end to be able to fulfill without you being there too. So
Gotcha.
both those sort of things that I just talked about are hard.
Yeah.
Um, it requires it's not, and this is where you see a lot of people get bogged down. And a lot of these people, these sort of like funnel bros, I call them. They're just really good at closing the sales, but they don't have the fulfillment.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you got to get good at hiring and managing people. That's really what happens. You got to get good at building a culture and like that's what it takes, you know, and it's not easy. And I think when you're in service and when you're an agency, you have to start taking these things more seriously at around like three, four, $500,000 a year in revenue.
Mhm.
Where
Yeah.
if you're another company, like maybe a e-commerce store or a SaaS business, like you can scale to millions of dollars without really having to put in an org chart, you know, without really having to put in
Okay.
company values and management layers and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you know, typically once you get past 5 or 10 clients with a service, you have to start being able to really develop those skills as a leader to learn how
Yeah.
to build some of those systems that I talked about.
Well, your business, it was very, very active. It was a very, let's say, active income, like the complete opposite of what a passive income would look like.
Yeah.
And so the amount of hours and time per client and attention, I imagine that was a huge struggle. You know, how did you rein it in when you had, well, I think the most I ever heard you say maybe it was 34. Um, how do you how are 34 people doing stuff at the same time? Right? I've never had a 34
Yeah.
employee setup. And so like you had the delegators that delegate to delegators. I mean, like how many levels are we talking about? You know, what are some systems you put in place to just make sure that everyone, you know, not everyone was working, you know, cracking the whip all the time, but that everyone knew what they were supposed to do. They knew where they were supposed to be and what was most important, and not just
Yeah.
kind of like moving pebbles around.
Yeah. I think that what we did this at the because I can tell you the system, but it's also the execution of that system is extremely important too. And most people don't really. You have to really execute it.
Is that the
And the
2X?
key, well, not 2X. It's more of just like it's like a simple system. It's basically everyone has a clear role,
Okay.
and they are where it's like put on a piece of paper, and they're measured um, each month based off their role, like their KPIs they're responsible for and the responsibilities they're responsible for.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, like that sounds really easy. In a lot of ways, it is, but in practice, it's really hard because you need to first off, you need to go out and build all these documents and
Right.
you know you have to be able to give these to people. Secondly, you have to assume they're right. Like a lot of times they're just the wrong responsibilities, the wrong KPIs.
Right.
Sometimes it just takes time to really figure out what are the responsibilities and the KPIs. So you have to go through that process. And then you have to be able to delegate that to somebody else and teach them how to score and grade and coach and be a leader to other people. And that takes time too. Like teaching people how to become managers, you know?
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah, you're having to,
and
the
so,
next level of leadership is teaching people how to teach, right?
yeah.
Become like
And
it's like almost like multi-level marketing or something, like
yeah.
like leaders that turn into leaders themselves. Like you're a
Yeah.
leader, yeah, managing
Yeah. It's,
leaders.
you really have to be focused on it and you really have to have a lot of attention to detail there. And I found uh, the average sort of like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, wantrepreneur, hustler, you know, like they don't want to do that sort of work, you know. Um, it's work that doesn't always translate into revenue right away, you know. Um, and but you got to get these systems installed, and it
Mhm.
takes time.
Yeah.
Um, but when you do, you know, and again, it's like we're still tweaking it. Like we tweak it all the time. Like I was looking at something today on one of our systems, like they we're like tweaking a little bit, like this one KPI. So it's like it never ends. Um, but I think that like a lot of people just sort of set it up once and then forget about it, or they don't really fully adopt it themselves as the leader, and therefore no one's going to adopt it.
Right.
Or they just make a bunch of stupid mistakes, and yeah, it just like it's really really challenging to get it all. But I mean, if you can get every single person clear on their role in the company, and they're measured by clear KPIs that you're tracking every week or month,
Yeah.
and you can
Yeah.
give them feedback on that,
Right.
then, in theory, like that's how you get it really well dialed in.
So I'm assuming like having the right fit,
Mhm.
uh, them understanding the culture, and then them understanding their role, and then holding them to, they're a frog that's paid to jump, as opposed to like a fish that's paid to jump. And so they know exactly, okay. And then you have that's probably the hard part. You have to actually track your own stuff too as well and report to them like this is what I've got. What do you have? And then you'll have to compare notes. And if you're not
Yeah.
doing it, nobody's doing it.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I think that
some of it's
what,
self-reporting, right? Some of it they have to do themselves and then report how many
yeah.
they made or whatever, like how many closed, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that like what, you know, really big picture here, like how I think about it is everything around us. I think there's three core things. There's our mission, there's our vision or our values, and then there's our value chain. And so the value chain, this is the report we run our whole business on.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really simple thing. It's like how does value get created in your company? Like how do you actually, like what are the key metrics to go from like a customer is never, like how does someone actually become a customer in your company?
Right.
How do you turn them into a repeat customer? And how do you turn those repeat customers I talked about earlier into raving fans, where they give you a review, a testimonial, a case study, something like that. And so that's what we use. We use that value chain, and we have like probably 20 metrics that we're tracking within that value chain. One of them is revenue, one of them is profit, one of them is like uh how much traffic we got this
Mhm.
past week, how
Right.
many calls we got booked, how many sales we closed, how happy is our team, how profitable our utilization, our LER. I've mentioned a couple of these KPIs. We're tracking across all of those KPIs. And then we're giving certain people on our team are responsible for those KPIs.
Right.
And
Right.
again, it's put on a report that they have access to, that they're getting graded on every single month. And it's like getting all of that system installed. It just takes some time. I mean, now that I've gone through that process and I know it, I could be able to easily do that for another business,
Right. Right.
but with this, it was like really the first business I've scaled to over $1 million. And
Mm.
it just took me a while to figure that out,
Yeah, I mean, how much time were you spending on these, these documents a week? And that's valuable
20,
hours. How many?
20 minutes maybe.
Really? Okay, so
We have
once
somebody else.
you
I mean, I spent a lot of time getting it dialed in. Yeah. And like,
uh,
we spent quarters tracking the wrong KPIs, or
mhm.
so, I mean, you got to go through those growing pains of being like, why is this KPI red? Like, what's
Yeah,
wrong here?
yeah,
It takes some time to figure it out, but now that it's pretty dialed in, we just, we have a meeting, various meetings, weekly meetings, like a sales meeting, a marketing meeting, and the person who's responsible for that KPI just gives an update on it.
right. Yeah, that might be one of the harder parts too, like holding one to it and being like, you didn't do this. This is as important as your regular job. You have to
Yeah.
do this, or else we can't tell what the hell's going on. And then
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
just assume you're the weakest link, I guess, right? Like, have you had like
Yeah. I mean, I think
have you had like employees that are like, I'm not going to do it, or in practice, like in reality, they're not going to do it.
I found that the true, what we call, like, we have people use this word like A players kind of liberally. Like, we actually tell people how to become an A player. All right. So
Mm, okay.
and this is not my original thinking. I read this in a book called Scaling Up by
Okay.
Vern Harnish. But yeah, I mean, there's four criteria. The first one is like, do you actually want to be here? Like, do you have will? Do you have grit?
Gotcha.
Do you hustle? The second one is, are you a values fit? The
Ooh,
third
okay.
one is, do you actually get the results? Do you like hit these KPIs? And the fourth one is, do you have the skills to do it?
Okay.
And so And I found that those A players, like, they want to be graded, you know? They
Uh,
they
wow.
and
Okay.
a lot of times, like, the values fit again, and that's